Hi everyone, in this video we're going to look at how we can build a facade using Grasshopper and Rhino, and we're going to use this parametric facade to generate a couple of options using a plugin called Lunchbox, where we can swap from options to options, and we're also going to use an attractor point to be able to control those options. And then when we're done with this sort of process, we're going to jump into ComfiUI and I will run you through a workflow we can put into place to use Flux in ComfiUI, and a couple of control net to have control over the output of the image. And the idea is to link whatever happened in Rhino and Grasshopper into ComfiUI to be able to generate some high realistic images from the process. So this process is very helpful to actually in early stage design to just generate a couple of ideas, and afterwards it's about curating the data and being able to see what's good and what's bad, and sort of understanding and bring some ideas on the table. Okay, so in this part of this video we're gonna look at how we're gonna be able to generate those files. So first, let's have a look at the Rhino part. So this is basically the file I share on Patreon, and we'll just run through how to create those files in Grasshopper, and then and you can do the same here in Rhino. So what I've done here is basically very simple. We just have here some block that are the right height, that are basically the building, the context, and I just put a mapping of that context on those blocks. So then when I use Canny, or when I use Canny, it sort of recognizes the pattern on that blocks, and then it can just help to generate that image. And then we have the roads, and then I just put a bit of greenery here. I also have people, and then in the building I basically have just one cube, and then the base here of those columns. Those columns can be like sort of edited and changed, you know, as needed. And then here we have basically the main volume we're gonna play with, and it's basically plugged in here. So if I run you through a bit of how to start the Grasshopper file, basically what you need to do is you first need to reference this brep. So you can see my facade is slightly off, so what I need to do is get the brep, and then I'll just right click and then set brep, and I'm gonna set this one. So now that my brep is set, I usually like to name them the same way, so let's call it part 2, and then you can rename it and click on this button and it will actually name it with this. The only challenge with that is you don't really know if it's a brep or a curve or a point, so that can be a bit confusing, but I like doing it this way because then you just reference back all your parts. So you could just do, you know, Rhino part 2, and then basically what we need to do after is just explode that brep. So I just explode or deconstruct. I'm always confused with this one. For some reason I always try to explode it and then just deconstruct brep. So by deconstructing it, you can extract the faces, the edge, or the vertices you want. And what we're interested about is actually the face. So we're just gonna select the face, and then bingo, my first face is actually index 0. So lucky for me, I don't have to go and add a slider to change the faces, but if you want to see what it does, if you add a slider here, you can select different faces. So we're just gonna keep this one as 0. I'm just gonna keep it as 0 so you can see it's item 0. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna create an offset of that surface. So create this offset, and now I can just give it an offset. So here we can do 0.5, which is 500 mil, which is quite big, but you know, you can change that a bit and adjust how it works. And look, 0.3, yeah, 0.3 would be good. I'm just gonna turn off that so then we are not getting confused. And I'm just gonna turn it off completely. Cool. So there, here we go. We've got our volume, our offset surface, and then what we're gonna do after is we are gonna go to Lunchbox. So if you go all the way here, Lunchbox. If you don't have Lunchbox, you might need to go to Package Manager in Rhino, and then you can look for Lunchbox. I'm just saying that because I have students that didn't have it, and then so they had to install it from there. So just make sure you get Lunchbox installed. You click on it, and then you can install it. And then you will have that tab appearing, and then there's this famous, very famous sort of set of tools, which is with panels. So what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna use a couple of those ones. So very simple sort of process. Lunchbox is really helpful tools to start with in Grasshopper. So I'm just gonna use this various one, and then we're just gonna plug those ones into there. So we're just gonna select, and we're gonna do this, okay? But we're also gonna select this one because I want to do this one, I want to do this one, and I want to do this one as well. Okay, so then we have different options here, and then what we could do is we can basically give it a division. So let's say I got 50, and then I'm just going to plug it into the U division, and I'm just gonna keep it consistent. So I'm just going to plug it under all the U's, and then the V value. So the V, sorry, are here. V division, V and V, and then I like to name my slider the same way. So V division, U division, and then we have a nice pattern. So I'm just going to turn off, just going to focus only on one for now. We're just going to turn on this one. So here, obviously you can change it. Change your slider, you change your U division. So again, this is very basic Grasshopper, but again, this is quite interesting sort of starting point for starting exercise. Here's my offset surface, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna create an attractor point, okay, on that facade that will sort of drive the scale of those panels. Because I want the scale to change and to update and change, I will just have that that element. So the way you do it is evaluate surface, and then by doing evaluate surface, I can do that. I can set up under my parameters. I can set up a MD slider. So on this facade, basically. On this surface here, I'm just going to evaluate that surface, and I will create a point. Now, if you set up just like this, you see that your point is not moving all the way on the facade. So you need to actually reparameterize. So go right click on there and reparameterize your surface. And by doing so, you can move your attractor point across the surface. Okay, so right click and reparameterize is an important element. So now that I have my attractor point, what I'm gonna need to do is I'm just gonna need to find the center of each of those triangles. So what I'm gonna do, because of this specific geometry, we've got diamond panels, but we also have triangles all around in the periphery of the geometry. So I'm just gonna merge them all. So I merge all those panels together, so they become one sort of geometry, and they're all sort of individual surfaces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the area of those panels. By having the area, I'll be able to measure the distance between this point here and the center of each of those geometry. By doing so, I can just do distance. So I'm just going to measure the distance between that centroid to that point here. Now I got a set of distances, and what I need to do is I need to remap that distance. So I need to measure this distance. So if I go into the panel and look at the distance, I have a series of number, right? And I want it to somehow respond to a scale component. A scale with my geometry, my center, and a factor. So here at the moment I have a factor of 0.5. So if 0.5 means if it's 1, it's the same size, and if it's 0, it just sort of disappears, and all those ones are sort of in between. Now we just want to give it somehow a scale factor between 0 and 9. Okay, so maybe the closest it is to that point here, it will be 9, and then the further away it will become 0.1. Okay, so we could do this. So we basically need to remap all those distances to be all between 0.1 and 0.9. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a component called remap number. Now remap number will basically give me the value, so I put all my distance in there, and then the target. So the target here would be between 0 and 1, and we could even be more accurate and say we're going to construct a domain, and we're going to say I want domain to be between, because we say it, between 0, 1 and 0.9. So that's my domain now. So instead of being between 0 and 1, it's 0.1 to 0.9. And then what I need to do is I need to find my bounds. So I need to find the minimum and the maximum of those distance, and that will help with the source. So here my minimum is 0.4. So it's a distance between this point and probably this one, 0.4. And the maximum is 10 meters, so it might be between this point and this point. But those numbers will move and will change. Okay, so if I look at what is happening out of here, and I bring this to my point here, you can see that those numbers will change. So it's a bit tricky. So you want that to automate the process. So you want to put that under the source. Now what that does, if I look at what happened with its numbers, this is the distance remapped. So now 7 meter is actually 0.6 if you put it back into a scale, a remap between 0.1 and 0.9. And that will sort of giving me some data that will be between 0.1 and 0.9. 0.9 being the furthest away. So if I go all the way, 0.9 was like here, it's 11, for example. So it will be like very close to 1, to 0.9, but it's not gonna be quite 0.9. And so now I got all my scale. If I plug this instead of this scale, now I got a progressive sort of change of scale. So I got this here. Now my triangles are responding to my points. So if I help with the read, okay, so then you can see, and if I turn on this one, you can see that my triangle will change. And then again, if I feel like it's a bit too much, I could just I could reduce my minimum to 0.4 and my maximum to 1. So then it means that It's never gonna go smaller than 0.6 here, for example, so it's just gonna be a slight variation. And then, but when it's gonna be really far away, it's almost gonna be 1. Or it could be like, okay, when it's 0 and 1.5. Okay, so you can change this value as you wish. And so basically this is it. This is the how complex it gets. And then when you have, as soon as you have this, then all what you need to do is, I like to use a stream. So a stream filter allows you to have different options. And here you can use a slider. And if you put the gate here to 0, it will let go to the stream 0. And then you can have the preview component. So custom preview, for example. And then the material, or you could also do material. Preview, let me see. Preview, custom preview, TT material preview. Yeah, that could be it. So this is really nice. This is sort of a bit better material, but it's a plugin you need to download called TT. So it's a TT material. So have it somewhere. It's this one here, which is the TT toolblocks. But the basic preview can work as well. So, and here you can just select your input, which is basically your material. So here you can change the color, and I will tell you a bit more about the color to choose after that, and then you can change that. And so if you want to change it, as I change it here, for example, I used, you know, like I have those options written. You can use another tool called value in list. And so value list, you can name it as you want. So it can be options. And then under, if you right click on this, you could have the first option. So that would be the diamonds, and it would be option 0. Diamond? Is it the diamond? Yeah, that's the diamond. So you could have option 0, and then if I plug this one, it's gonna be the diamond, and then you can change it and have different options. So here, all what I have to do now is I can keep this, and I can just create the same for all of them. So I can just copy paste this. So I'm just gonna grab that, and I don't even need this one. I can just grab this and Control C, Control V, and then I select my geometry, point B remain the same, and then I put it here, and then I copy paste and do the same here. And here I'll add a stream and another one and another one, and then I plug them as we go. And you could have as many options as you wish. This is really up to you. And then the point will always be the same, and then I can plug that into this one. Now I can just go back here, and just this one is random quad panel, so I can copy paste, edit, and here paste, and this one will be stream 1. So now I got this one, and then this one, triangle panel B, Control C, Control V, Control C, and then here Control V, and here I'll call it the 2. Now I have it. And then here, same idea, Control C, edit, right click edit. And this one will be output number 3. And now I have all my options. So I could go back here and it's a bit clearer than a number. And then I can just turn that off. And then I can just go through that and, for example, change those numbers. And then I can just go back to diamond or go to triangle. Or I could go with this one. And there we go. And I have my options. So this is how the Grasshopper part look like. And I think this is all you need for now, where you can just play with that. You can adjust those sliders as well. You can also keep these ones, having them here, and sort of plug them all here if you wish. That could be also a nice way to optimize it. But that's it. Okay, so another things that I want to set up in Rhino as well is my perspective. So I like doing this because it just sort of helps you down the track in the process, so it avoid having to play around too much with it. So I just set up this perspective here, and then I'm just gonna reduce the Grasshopper. That's what you see on my video, just to whatever control I want to have. So here, for example, really I just want to see my division, this one, so I just can keep it very small, and here I can just go through the different options without having to really look at what is happening beyond that point, and then sort of start playing with those items. And then I don't really have to change that perspective, so I found something that is quite sort of balanced, and then I might just reduce that slightly, give it plenty of space here, and then I keep my Grasshopper, so then I have a bit of space in my on my screen for ComfyUI. Now this is the one I share and sort of put on my Patreon as well, like you can get it as well. And it's got load image as well, and then I also have an upscaler. I'm still sort of work around, but that's sort of available in the file. What we're gonna do today is just we're gonna break down this one and focusing on the screen sharing, because I think that's a feature that seems to be a lot of people seems to be interested about how that works. So I'm just going to run you through what's happening here, and then sort of how to generate some image. So just to give you a bit of an idea here, I have prompt here, raw photo, front elevation photography, architecture overexposed, minimal formed modern building between two Haussmannian buildings in Paris, super reflective glass, parametric timber panels, plants on the facade, retrofuturistic style, early morning shot, artificial light from inside, white overcast sky, diffuse light, ISO 1600. Those are like some of those are from Ismail as well. Like he posted a couple of like good one, and I've just sort of like I've been using some of his prompt. I found it quite successful. So yeah, all credit to him on those last couple of ones. And then sort of like here is like where I like to have all my model that I load. Here is more like about the image, the resizing, a bit of the prompt. Here is like all my settings for my case sampler. Here are my control nets with scanning and depth. Here's my case sampler. And then I have my preview images and save images. But I like that when I work on the things, but I find it very hard to to understand if you haven't built it from scratch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna deconstruct it a bit. So I think the first things you want to do is you want to load unit. So this is the main model you're gonna use. So here we use Flux dev Q8. It's quite efficient for what we're doing. So I think that's the first step. So you want to have your unit. So again, to load your node, you just double click here and then you get to your unit loader. So it's a bit different than SDXL because SDXL is checkpoint. So if I go checkpoint loader or load checkpoint, and here you get, you know, SDXL stable diffusion 1.5. For Flux, it's a unit loader, and the GGUF is a more efficient model. So what we're gonna do here is we load the model. Another things we need is the VIE. So the VIE is something you can download. I'll put the link in the description, but you can just use this one for almost everything in Flux. So it's quite convenient. You have one VIE that works with Flux. And then here for Flux, I got a couple of models, but the Q8 is the one that sort of works quite well with my computer. So I got this one. And then I guess another one that you need as a starting point is your dual clip loader. So the dual clip loader, same idea. You need to download those safe tensor. The first one I use is the T5XXL FP8 that works with the dev Q8 that I have here. And then the second one is the clip L, sorry. And then the type is Flux, not SDXL, not Rgthree, it's Flux. So to get the dual clip loader, it's part of ComfyUI packages. So again, if you need to install a package, you can go on the manager, and the manager here you can install missing custom nodes. And if I look for the Comfy impact pack, so you've got a lot of them. So which one is the one I have? I think it was the basic one. So let me see. Loader ComfyUI. So if you go manager, ComfyUI, Comfy Essential, and I probably have ComfyUI somewhere. But anyway, yeah, that's this one here. But then again, you can download any of them. So if you load my my file, it will tell you which one you need to download, and then you can just go in the manager and just install missing node, and it will install in the background all the model you need and all the nodes you need, which is very convenient. So here is basically what you need as a starting point. And then the second part, I guess, is your control net. So we're probably going to look at first the image. So we're going to load also our basic image. But here we're going to use the screen sharing one. So screen sharing one is, so we're not going to use this one for now, but it's the same principle. You load an image here and then you resize it so it can be a screenshot. But what we're gonna do here is we're gonna stream it sort of live here. So we're not gonna use this one. So the screen share is actually, so from Mixlab, screen share, ComfyUI Mixlab node, and it's a very nice node. Design input, I I saw it in one of his video, brilliant use of it, and I found it just very powerful. I've been using it quite often since then. So this is the first step. The second step is to resize the image. So sometimes when you screenshot, you know, from Rhino, you might not be sure about the proportion, the size of it, so you need to resize it. So you need to basically have defined a size here. So what I have here used is an empty Latin image preset, but you can use any of those nodes. All what you need is a Latin, so how many batch, so how many image you want to produce, and also the dimension. I like this one because it gives you already a set of dimensions that works well with Flux, and it's also give you all the ratios. So I like sort of having it so you don't have to manually type always dimensions. So this one is quite efficient. So I just pick 1344 by 768, ratio of 175 to 1. And then I just plug it into my width input and my height input. And then we have the image, so which is basically a screenshot. We'll look at it a bit later. And then we just resize it to the right size. And then we produce that image. So we know that the image that comes out here is the right size. So here again, I have the dimensions here. Writing down. Yeah. And so that's pretty much it. So I have that resized image, and then I go to a couple of elements. So the first things I need to do is I'm just gonna bring back. So I'm just gonna take those control net, and we'll talk about those control net a bit later. So after I get my image, it basically needs to go through various elements. The first element that I like to use for my Flux workflow is the model sampling Flux. So again, model sampling Flux, it's from ComfyUI. And then you have a basic scheduler that is also from ComfyUI. And then here we just keep it as normal. Here you can write down the number of steps you want for the denoising process, the Gaussian denoising process. So here you can change those steps. I recommend nothing less than 25. I've done a couple of tests, and yeah, under 25 it's not coming quite as good. And then yeah, here I kept sort of the height and the width. Here you can potentially change it back to those dimensions, but I kept it like this for now. And this basically, out of this basic schedule, I'm starting to populate the my case sampler. So my case sampler here is a sampler custom advanced, and it's got noise, a guider, a sampler, a sigma, and a Latin image. So it's pretty specific to Flux. I found it's a bit different. So let's have a look at it. So what it needs is, it basically needs an input, which is basically the random noise. So if I go to my case sampler here, I need random noise. So again, random noise is ComfyUI as well. And then you can give it a seed number, and you can randomize, or you can increase or fixed. I wouldn't worry too much about it if it's the first time you use it. Just keep it as randomized, and then you can refine and sort of understand more about what that does later down the track. Another one that you need is the sampler. So you need to know which sampler you used. For Flux, I recommend the Euler. Same thing, I've done a couple of tests with all of them. A lot of them are coming quite nice. Some of them are completely useless and don't work at all. But Euler with 28 steps works very well. Even with less steps, it's always quite solid case sampler. So you can use the sampler Euler, and then basically you just plug your sampler into here. And then another one that you need is the guider. So the guider here is basically connected to your model. So my model here, and I plug my basic guider here, and then my conditioning. So conditioning is there and there. So conditioning is a bit of a tricky one. So conditioning is basically your prompt. So if I select this and then I put my prompt here, so what I need from the conditioning is my positive prompt. So I could plug this here, and this is my clip here. So I wrote it down, put it against it here, and then so the way you do it, clip text encode. So this is the same as this one, and you can write your prompt here. You can write your prompt here straight away on the clip, and then plug your conditioning here. Okay, but what I've done here is I've done it slightly different. I use another component called positive, and then I wrote down my prompt, and then I wanted to plug it to my clip here, but there's no input. So what you need to do is you actually need to select this one, and it actually done it by himself. What did it do? That's so interesting. Not too sure what I've done, but I've done it. And then here, so if you have your clip encoder, so you can't plug that here. Actually, wow. Okay, so now if you plug it here, apparently it's doing it. No? Okay, so here you need to right click, and then here you need to convert input. So right click, convert input, and then text to input, and that allows you to put the text, and then you have your conditioning. So this allows you to have different options. So if you want to have different prompt and use different turn on and off different options, a bit what we saw in Grasshopper with the stream. Same idea, you can have it here, but that's a subject for another video. So after you get that, you plug your conditioning here. That's what I would do if I would have no control net. Plug your conditioning here, and then you have your conditioning that go to your guider with the conditioning here, and then your model down to here. So then you have your guider, your noise, we have the sampler, which is the K sampler, the Euler, and then the sigma that comes from the basic shuttler here, and then we have our latent image that comes from here. So we could actually here, if I plug that here, we could skip the whole control net idea. The thing is, control net is what's making it very interesting in the process. So it would be a bit of a shame if we would remove the control net part. So what we're gonna do here is we are gonna plug this into our conditioner. So if I go back to here to my prompt here, I actually removed the wrong one. Anyway, that's fine. So we're gonna figure that. So the first things we want is we probably want to use our depth. So here I have my positive, negative prompt. So the negative prompt, again, you know, like it comes from the clip. So if you go clip encoder and then you plug your dual clip here, you write down your prompt, and then conditioning come out. So here I put rendering style, that's for my negative prompt, and then I plug it into my negative here. And now my positive here, that's my positive prompt. And then I plug it into text, and I'm just gonna select that conditioning, and I'm gonna put it this time into the positive. So this is apply controlNet. So apply controlNet. So it's this one here, config core again. What happened here is I just rename it. So if you right click on this and then you can just do title, you can actually rename it. So here I rename it depth. And then you just rename the title, but it's basically this one. It's a controlNet. It's an apply control. So that works very well with Stable Diffusion 3, but also Flux. And then here for the depths, you need to play a bit with that. This is sort of the number I came up with, 0.4, and then starting at 0, ending at 0.3. I recommend to just sort of play with it and see what comes up. Now this here is actually the image that we see here is, so what does the other inputs here are controlNet, image, and VAE. So let's have a look at controlNet. So if I follow this here along and I go all the way here, now those are my controlNet. So I'm gonna load controlNet called union. Okay, so if I go load controlNet model config core again, and then here I have an upscaler and a union, and then in painting we're gonna use the union. So now what's good with the union is it contains different settings. So it's basically one that groups a lot of different ones, and it groups canny and depth. So you need to actually select which one you want. So here is the set union control type, again it's in config core, and here you can see you can have auto, or you can have pose, or open pose, or depth. All of them, instead of having different controlNet, you have all of them into this union one. So you can see here what I've done is I select depth, and I have another one that selects sort of canny, line arts. Okay, so after I have my controlNet, I just plug this one all the way to my controlNet depth. Okay, and then the image, let's have a look at where the image goes. The image goes here. So the image is basically the image that come out of our screen share. So we screen share, we resize it to the proper size, and then out of this image that is at the right size, we're gonna use depth anything v2. Okay, so if I go depth anything v2, it's under ComfiUI controlNet box. And then the v2 is quite efficient. And then here you can download the model. The one I use at the moment, I test a couple, but it's the VTL path. And then the resolution, I just took the maximum resolution from the height. And so to see what sort of comes up. And then basically out of this image, I just select it and then I plug it into my apply controlNet depth. VAE is basically this one. So we select, plug it into this one. and then you change your strengths and settings. Now the preview here is actually connected to the depth anything. So this helps me to see and visualize what the depth is doing, and help me to sort of understand the settings of that depth and to see if that looks correct. Now, if I would have only one control net, I would be able to select the positive and then go all the way to my flux guidance here and then plug it here, and it will do the rest. Okay, but I have a second control net. So what I'm gonna do is I want also a canny control net to make sure that the result is nice. So I'm just gonna select this, and I'm gonna go all the way to my apply control net, and then I'm gonna use that positive that was come out of here onto this one. The negative remain the same. Negative remain the same, doesn't change anything. And then the control net, again, this time the control net is not, so still union, and this time it's canny and not depth. And then I select the control net as simple as that and plug it in. Now the image is also the same. So we've got the image coming from the resize, and then this time we're gonna use canny here. So canny is my preprocessor from ComfyUI, and I plug this one in. So you can see the settings I have are the one that by default. You might want to change and adjust that, depends on the renderings or like the image you want to produce. You might want to adjust that, and then all what I have to do is I plug it to my preview, so I see the canny, what comes out of the canny, and then I can also plug it into my control net canny here. VAE, same idea, the VAE here, plug it here. And under the strengths here I got 0.5 and then 0 to 0.3. I had to play a lot with those strengths. I found that I used to put like, you know, 0.7, 0.6, 0.9 on SDXL, and I found with Flux I reduced the strengths quite a lot, so 0.5, 0.4, otherwise it just become too not creative at all enough. So I found that sort of is the right balance. And then finally, when I have this, I'm just plugging as simple as it is, and then I put it under my flux guidance here. And then my flux guidance, and then I just push through that guidance to my basic schedule, and that will sort of feed my sampler. And then the output is from the decode. So I need the VAE decoder, and I put the output into the sample, and then the VAE is the same, so I plug the VAE. And then after that, I can just plug this image into preview image, and then the other one and the save image. So I'll just select this one, and then I can do preview image, plug it here, save image, plug it here. And that's it. And then I have those this result, and then this is another story. But now if I go back to my Mixlab, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna reduce that window, and I'm just gonna share my screen. So now that I have everything sort of running, hopefully I didn't break anything, I can go and share screen. So I'm sharing screen. So this one I'm just gonna use Rhino. So I'm sharing Rhino, and here I need to set an area. So set an area, and then here I'm just gonna select this area to share. Okay, and yeah, and then I can just reduce, maybe I can reduce that a bit, just increase this. Reduce that a bit. Yeah, I don't need that much of this. Okay, quite tight. And then I may just set the area again, just because I just moved it. So I'm make sure I don't select anything from Rhino. I just focus on whatever is on the window. Cool. And then here we can press set live. So if I press set live, every time I will change in Grasshopper, it will queue automatically. It will go through the process automatically. So let's have a look at this one first. So I'm just gonna queue. And so you can see here, it will go through the process. Here now it's going through the depth anything. And then we can see here appearing. So that's my depth anything. And something interesting to look at is, or to look for, is to make sure that when you use it like this, that you can still see the pattern in your depth as well. So this is quite important. And I've done a couple of tests, and depending on the color you use for your preview, sometimes it doesn't show quite nicely on that depth. So have a look at the depths. It works always better when the depth is working here. Kenny didn't get any of it. So interesting. All right, well, let's see how it looks like. So now it's processing. So it's my sampler here that is working hard. Yeah, so you can see that the problem with my Kenny here is didn't really get that those geometries. So you might want to go and sort of turn that off. And I don't know, maybe change slightly, a bit more contrast. Okay, I need to pick it up. It's quite slow. I think it's because I'm sharing my screen and I'm recording. And there we go. So not very good result. Not super convincing, and I think that's because my Kenny here didn't quite get there. So I don't really want it looks like the depths got it, but it just, the Kenny didn't get it quite well. So let's have a look again. And now that I changed slightly the color, and then we can just live run. Let me see if I can change that. Oh yeah, no, I got it on this one. Cool. Yeah, so see, the color could be something that that affected. So here you got all the things. The only thing that it didn't get is that top. And there it is here. Okay, so yeah, not the best results, but at least it got the geometry. So let's have a look at if we change it to something different. Let's do this triangle. So you can see here, because it's set live, it's already gone. So it's quite amazing how like when you set it live, if you change it, it will just send it through. So sometimes it's a bit, can be tricky, because it's sort of like, oh yeah, here it created. So see, they just just keep doing it. So I think that's the refresh rate. So this one is actually a bit better. Again with the squares. The timber panels, I don't know, it didn't quite get it. Like it looks like more like a aluminium, brushed aluminium. But I like this sort of recess, and I think it works quite nicely. It's doing some interesting stuff here as well. Not too sure if it's lighting or if it's geometry. But anyway, now it's processing this canny. So we can see on the depths, it's very hard. The triangle are very hard to read. So I'm not too sure what type of result we're gonna have, and that's why it's good to have sort of canny and depths, because sometimes depths will pick up on some stuff and canny will pick up on another. Yeah, okay. Okay, there's some interesting things here at the bottom. The top is quite boring, to be honest. Maybe it's the geometry, so we can just stop the live and then try to think a bit a bit more, and then go back to this one is number 2. So if I go 0, 1, 2, so it's this one here. We can try something like this. I don't know if it's gonna get it quite, but let's give it a go. So you can change the refresh rate as well. So if you don't want it to do it too much, you can put it to 50, so it doesn't sort of gives you a bit of time to generate the geometry. So that's the canny. It's quite good, but see again at the top, it's not quite there. And the depth, the depth didn't get anything. Any of the geometry. But still, you know, like even with the texture, that's quite amazing. Even with the texture, it sort of gets some of the shadows. Yeah, it actually get it. Somehow it gets it. The base is not really good, but you got the pattern. It's not quite there. So again, my prompt here, timber parameter, just there's no plants there. So yeah, I think metal will work quite well. Panels. Let's see if we can change a bit this. Let's stop the live and then yeah, what about this one? Curious to see. The depths start to pick up on a couple of things, which is quite good. Yeah, not super successful. We don't really have that sort of variation. not quite good. So I think it needs to be, I think it needs sort of for this one, it needs a bit of a LoRa to help with some background. I found it works quite well on the large one because it just sort of read it as windows, and it sort of refer back to the, I guess, the database. Thanks for watching this video. That's it for today. I hope you enjoy it. The main idea with this video is really about just how to bring and link some work you would have done in Rhino and Grasshopper, and you want to sort of quickly visualize it to sort of generate idea. And it's really about generating a starting point from a geometry. So instead of having something completely random, text to image, where you just write a prompt, here you could shape your image, write a prompt accordingly to what you want to see in the image, but you also have the input of ControlNet to have a control over the geometry. So helps you with the number of floor, helps you with the geometry, the scale of things, and that sort of bring back to the geometry, and we can just sort of bring that together and sort of iterate through. Now there's a big sort of exercise afterwards of curation on, like, you know, finding the best process, the best idea, the best concept. And in a few videos I'm gonna do later on will be how to integrate sustainability into that mix, but you can see how you could sort of start generate some idea in terms of context and proportions and relation to historical streets. All those type of things can be taken into consideration, and having those visual there can really help to start the discussion. It's not meant to be like a final product. Again, it's just a starting point of the conversation on how to use those tools efficiently in the design process. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please like it, comment, support the channel. Let me know what you think about it. See if there is way to improve it. And I'm looking forward to see you in the next video. Ciao.